Welcome to the 2-month review, the weekly podcast in which we take one giant book, break it down section by section, bit by bit, analyze it, talk about it, have fun, make jokes, go into history, debate things, do whatever we want to do, complain about the Best Translated Book Award shortlist, which we will be doing shortly. And I'm Ted from Open Letter Books. And I'm joined as always by Brian Wood, author of Joytime Killbox, forthcoming from Boa Editions.
Hi, Chad.
How are you doing, man?
Good. I could start off this one with just a really quick myth, since I feel like there's a lot of myths in this section.
There's a lot of myth making in this section.
So let me tell you about the myth about last night, where I was walking and then I stubbed my toe and I fell face forward and my face landed on a bottle of wine. And so there was no way to escape this bottle of wine in my face unless I drank the whole thing, which I decided to do because I wanted to free myself from this terrible accident. But once swallowing all of that wine and dislodging the bottle, I fell onto something else and drank that as well. And here I am today.
the myth of Brian's morning.
Here I am today, taking my daughter to school. Just be quiet, don't talk, don't say anything, with my head out the window.
Oh no!
Hooray!
So you're gonna be on top form. We're just real quick. We're talking about Codex 1962 by Sjón. Today we are going to be talking about the end of the first volume of the trilogy. Thine Eyes Did See My Substance. Specifically, we'll be talking about pages 156 through the end of that section, and then we are talking about the first chapter of the second volume of the book. Iceland's 1,000 Years, which is subtitled The Crime Story. We'll get to that later, but there we are covering those pages, so up to 197 in this episode. Although, if you've ever listened to this podcast before, you know that you don't necessarily have to have read anything. We recap stuff. We don't necessarily, analyze it all that properly anyway. So, and usually get our facts wrong. And since we don't have Kari here this week to set us straight. We're in trouble, especially if you're hungover.
There's nobody smart on this one. This is gonna go sideways.
Here to help us. I'm all stressed out because I'm leaving for Norway in just a couple hours, and I just got information about what I'll be talking about on my panel, and it's stuff that I don't know. So I'm trying to quickly fix the translation database as much as I can so I can have some details for them. But I'm going to be at an airport from 1 p.m. this afternoon until forever. And I'm entering into the White Nights period of Oslo, and I have a problem with that. I don't sleep well when I feel like there's no night. I just stay out too late and just then, so this is going to be fun. It'll be interesting.
God, the White Knights, I thought it's some chapter of young extreme Republicans in Virginia or something.
The White Knights is
Chad,
Game of Thrones.
Tell me what is going on here. Yeah. What?
Now that Game of Thrones is over, our ratings are going to boom. Everyone's going to be coming here for good, sweet literary content.
Yeah.
You can't get that from HBO anymore. Dude, I read this morning. There are 4 shows in development at HBO that are prequels to Game of Thrones.
Well, it's their moneymaker, man. They got to go where the money is. Yeah, I don't know. 4.
Awesome. 4 prequels. This is nonsense.
There's a lot of unanswered questions within the myths of Westeros.
I heard that Jon Snow won things. He won a crown or a throne or something. Or
I don't know. Whatever.
I'm probably wrong about that. I hope that made every fan out there.
He goes on a ski vacation. We'll see what happens.
He hangs out with the Winter Frost Giants. So, anyways,
speaking of myths,
there's not a lot of myths in this chapter. So
I tried to set you up with that, but I'll just pluck it and do it myself. Speaking of myths,
let's do this. Well, we got chapters. Let's recap really quick. So this first volume of Thine Eyes Did See My Substance focuses on 2 main people: the invalid, who is a Jew that shows up at this hotel, I guess, in this little town in Germany, and they protect him by hiding him in this little vestibule area within the secret room and assign Marie-Sophie, who's one of the maids there, to take care of him. And there's lots of implications over what take care of him means, but generally she's just talking to him and he's not really responding. He seems sickly and not well. And then Marie-Sophie has her own bit where she goes out to see her boyfriend, Karl Maus, and he rapes her violently because he assumes that she has had sex with the invalid, and therefore her virginity has been taken, and he needs to fuck her clean, to put this in as gross a terms as possible. But that's part of what he says, and he's going to incant things, and then last moment he changes his mind and brutally defiles her. And so she returns to the invalid. There's a very odd scene in which they burn up together at the end of the last episode that we talked about, and the compartment that they're in burns up, and that's where we pick up this time with like they have just like burnt up. And there's a couple weird things about this section I want to mention. One is the painting that gets referenced a bunch of times.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that. In this first section, the first chapter 16 that we're talking about today, is the section in which our narrator is born, more or less. Mm-hmm. This is a myth-making section in which the invalid is suddenly okay, capable of talking, acting, being a fine person. They reference having burnt up together. It felt good to burn with you, but they're going to take me away. They're going to take me away, so they're going to do one last thing. And if she'll be with him in this, they will sort of mind meld, I guess, and using this clay that he brought in this hat box, mold together a golem of a young baby that they bring to life together. So the baby is born. The supposedly the narrator of our trilogy that's been narrating this whole book, telling the story of his mom and his dad and how he came to be, is born of clay through this sort of mystical transformation. And there's like various references to essentially the Kabbalah in here or something similar to that, in which like the text keeps changing. Things are metamorphosis is referenced in here. There's a little parody of Kafka in this chapter. All that stuff bringing him to life.
There definitely seems to be a theme of metamorphosis throughout this whole end section, right?
Yeah, transformations. We'll get to the other one in a second, but which is a wholly different myth. But for this one, like the golem myth is really, I mean, we knew it was coming in a lot of ways. It sort of hinted at it, and it was one of the themes that we picked up on throughout the earlier sections of this book.
The dough, the gingerbread. There's a cook that's constantly making stuff. Yeah, making
little boners for his little gingerbread man. Which they talk about in here too. Is almost directly referenced in this chapter.
Oh, which is that other? Did I ever show you that one where I was saying this is one of the worst translations ever, where it was a YouTube video for kids about the gingerbread man?
Oh wait, yeah, you did.
It's like,
I remember this now.
It was like extremely, I don't know if sexist is the right word, but it was just completely wrong in the tone, and then the translation's weird. Like, I have nothing to do and I have no children. I will make a child from gingerbread because I don't want my hands to have nothing to do. I'll get in trouble. And you're just like, what in the world? And so my daughter's watching this. I'm like,
You've stumbled into a dark part of the YouTube.
Nothing. Yeah. But yeah, it's like she makes her own child out of bread.
Yep.
I guess that's how that story goes. I don't know. I don't remember how the gingerbread.
Yeah, that's another, not myth, but like variation on a myth. This whole section is myths and stories of creation.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of them. A lot of creation stories. So what'd you make out of, I'll tell you the one thing that was the most meaningful to me in this whole chapter. And then we can get into a bit more of it. But on page 163, and this is what I had hinted at before, where they're deciding to make, he's deciding, Lo is his name. He finally says his name, Loewe. So I guess Lo is saying that he's going to make it into a boy. And so he has the extra material and he's making the penis. And he says, I know what you're thinking, but I want it to be a boy. I long for a little boy who will be different from the rest, a peace-loving boy who will grow up to be a good man. And I think that that's really what this whole first chapter first volume is about. And I've mentioned this a little bit in passing, but I feel like this is an origin myth of someone who can be a male that doesn't cause destruction. This is back to like our Radiant Terminus talks of like, kids are a way to exist in the world with all the Cox languages and all the structures that are around you and still be good as a male. And that's what that he desires here.
Yeah, and I dog-eared that section as well. I felt it was almost like a thesis statement and it makes total sense putting this, if you look at the positioning of this, it's right after the violent rape and then Bloodfoot, right?
Yeah.
And so you get those back-to-back, just awful, visceral, terrible things, and then this beautiful, tender moment of creation and wanting there to be a better world, a better future, a better man, a better type of person.
Yeah, and it is good that like it's interesting that the child is born not of intercourse, and born is going to be questionable here for a while, but let's just go with it for the moment. Created,
molded,
birthed, molded, maybe. And it's nice that it is the two of them. There's that section where kind of like they become one. Like that's what I was saying, mind melding. So it's like sort of like in a way you could read it and be like, oh no, that's like, this is intercourse or whatever, just different. But then that doesn't make any sense according to the plot, because the golem goes with the father, with Lo, out of the country in a little bit. But it is like the burning up, all these things are nondescript enough where you could interpret it in various ways. But the idea that he's born of clay and of the two of them coming together to do it, and not one person taking advantage of the other, makes it more powerful and tender, I think.
And it ties in obviously with the Genesis myth with molding Adam from clay.
Right. Creating all
not out of, he was not born of original sin, but just out of, love and exuberance, all that fun stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. The one thing I had a question for you. Do you know all the da 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 dum da da dum da dum da da da? Is that supposed to be something that we'd recognize?
I don't know. The problem with, I don't know. I have no clue.
I couldn't. Yeah, I was like, I just don't know if it's something that obvious. Like,
well, it's like I don't know the kids' songs or the folk songs of any of this. So
it would be awesome if this was actually like a subtle reference to like a Bjork song.
Yeah,
it's like everyone in Iceland's like, no, duh. Like, come on, man.
Idiots.
It's the most famous. But yeah, that's the part that like where they're together on 163 too, where the girl heard the feeling throb in her body, which now housed Lo, and she felt how the breathing in her new body resonated with the dum-da-dum, how they pulsed together in harmony, each lifting the other. Dum-da-dum, tiss and wee in the nose. He pointed at the lump, and now she saw a child begin to take shape in the formless mass. So yeah, so this is, I like this section quite a bit. It is like, it does bring everything together and makes it all make sense. The part that that I was referencing that sort of like reminded me of like a Kabbalah thing is on 160, where it says, a glow illuminated a golden wall, glimmering from 7 candles in a man-high candelabra. The candles smoked, the smoke flickered from the flames in ever-changing symbols or letters in a language she could make no sense of. A second later, this eternity was over, and he straightened up, his face wide awake. That sort of like shifting text thing is something that always shows up in those kind of books, is like that the world is like mutable, and that there's ways in which, by being able to read it correctly or being able to understand the symbols, that things can be birthed or a new world can be created. And I think that that's part of this too, is that there's the idea that not only can he be a boy that can grow up to be a peace-loving man that's not defiled by the Cox language, but that maybe he could bring into existence a new world that's not dangerous.
You know how random that sounds if someone wasn't listening to last season? Like, Cox language? What the hell are you talking? What the hell?
I assume we have 7 long-time listeners.
You mean you guys don't all know about the Cox language?
Yeah. Cox language. Okay, so footnote: Cox language was a term from Radiant Terminus by Anton Bulodin, in which basically it's like the worst parts of male aspects of psychology and sociology and thought. And so like anyone that's like
the language of
the language of patriarchy is the Cox language.
Like the language of like testosterone and sex and violence. Yeah.
Violence. Yeah. And disempowering others. Like all that's the Cox language. So yeah. So
just so you know,
just in case it just sounds.
Is it the language of the cocksex? Or where am I missing something here? Yeah.
It's like slowly devolving into like some kind of weird, non-interesting intellectual porn.
I like that. But it's a great shorthand for
all of that. It's
I like the Cox language. It works great.
It's kind of the best term.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you about what do you make out of this? So on page 167, they finish making the baby and like etching all the parts to the lump. And then Marie-Sophie put his hand in the right pocket, and sure enough, there was a leather pouch among the coins and scraps of paper. And through the leather, she felt 2 round objects, the eyes that were destined for their boy's head. Lo took the pouch from her and extracted the brown eyes and 2 frames of a film strip, one showing Adolf Hitler making a speech, the other showing the same man at dinner, wiping a gravy stain from his tie. And he laid the pieces of film, one in each eye socket, placed the eyeballs on top of them, then closed them with clay scrapings from under her nails. What's that about? Why the Hitler
Thanks for giving me the Hitler one. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. I don't know if that's supposed to be like Hitler's behind his eyes. I
took it as, and I I hate thinking out loud because it's dangerous these days to think out loud in public. But I kind of took it just as I was like, I don't know what it means, but I kind of took it as showing like the three dimensions of people, where you look at Hitler and he's an evil, vile person that did evil, vile things and one of the scourges of human history. But, you know, even Hitler loved dogs and had hopes and
That's
dreams.
where you know he went wrong. That's
exactly.
That's why you should have known. Should have known.
And so that gravy stain on him kind of completely, like, you have to remember, this is just a human being that had parents and, you know, whatever. So I took it as maybe try to show that there is a human side to everything, and not to be so strict with the way you look at the world. But I don't know if but that was like my first thought of it.
Yeah.
Because if you want to make a better person, it has to be somebody that's willing to see things from different points of view.
Right.
And those are so in the eyes there are the two, like, this is the public Hitler, this is the private Hitler, and this person sees both of it in their eyes. Yeah.
And if you see eyes putting those things together, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That sounds a lot like,
I don't know if that's right or wrong, but that's kind of what I was trying to, like, is that what's happening here?
Yeah, I wasn't not sure. What you just said reminds me of the part in the last volume of My Struggle by Knausgaard. It has a whole thing about Hitler and it, like, the danger of humanizing Hitler or talking about him as a human, but at the same time, the things that were written at the time when he was alive and about him were different than what we see in reading it in retrospect, where we know what the end result was. Yeah. So it's like it's a really interesting, it's a really interesting section of that book. Like, I found it fascinating. It is, like, intellectually wild to examine someone's thought pattern of going through trying to deal with, like, the problem of Hitler. And, like, the main part in Knausgaard is he reads Mein Kampf to see, like, what it is. And and so he quotes from it. And it's like the first time and the only time I'll ever have read any parts of that. None of us read it. We just assume we know what it is. We know what because we know what's evil about it. Yeah. So there's something. Maybe
too. Remember, was it last year or the year before? I had just kind of paid attention to Twitter that it, like, existed or stuff was on it, and I guess Joyce Carol Oates tweeted something about ISIS and got, like, blown up. Not blown up, but that's canceled. Canceled. Yeah, poor choice of words. Poor choice of phrasing there. It kind of went viral negatively. That I think she said, "Is there no joy in ISIS?" ? You know, like,
Jesus, like, I don't remember this.
Yeah, she mentioned something like that, and, like, she had to clarify, like, no, I was trying to say, like, these are still human beings with hopes and dreams. Like, we may not like any of what they're doing, and they're, you know, they're bad in what they're doing, but are they not still people and human? So she said, like, is there no joy in ISIS or something along those lines? And just people went crazy on her, like, what are you, how dare you? Like, so I'm wondering if it's something like that. Like, you can't, if something's evil, it has to be evil. You can't see any of the good that can be in that person or in that thing. Right.
Not to say that there's any good in Hitler. We'll back that up, but, like, the humility part of it, like the fragility of the person. It's also something about, like, yeah.
I don't know, like even Jeffrey Dahmer wanted something for Christmas. Come on.
Oh no.
I want a steak knife for Christmas.
Oh my God. Really sharp. Oh Jesus.
No, but we do. We have to live in this world that's, like, completely absolute. Like, this is absolutely evil, this is absolutely good, you know. And I'm wondering if that's what that part with the two film strips is trying to look at the world a different way. I don't know.
So the last part of it, and then we can move on. There's that's just below there. My father held the ring and asked my mother to do so as well, and together they pressed the seal into the tender flesh midway between breastbone and genitals. I woke to life, and her eyes saw my substance. The her could be Marie Sophie, but the substance could also be whatever you were saying, what was behind his eyes too. But that not necessarily. But there's our line. That's the line that thine eyes did see my substance.
And it starts that section with the Psalms.
Yeah. I skipped past that.
Thine eyes did see my substance, yet being unperfect.
Yep. Psalm 139.
So that's supposed to be like the belly button.
Yeah, that's what I assume
Okay.
so.
Okay.
But I assume that that also is the ring that's going to show up. It is in the next section, isn't it? It's coming. Let's go on. Okay, so the next part.
But also, just to wrap the bow on that, it was just, to me, it was just such a beautiful, wonderful section. It would have been on its own, but again, coming after all of that vile and evil, it was so wonderful to have something that was like it was just literally like felt tender, right? Like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
intimate. It was beautiful and so necessary coming after Bloodfoot.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And this is why, to segue into what I said we were going to talk about before, why I am shocked that this isn't on the best translated book award shortlist.
Boom! Oh no!
I'm shocked. I'm not the only one. I got a lot of messages being like, "How is that even possible?" And it's like, I have no idea. Like, I haven't read all the books on the shortlist, so whatever. Like, they might be better than this, but this is really spectacular. And
I've read
everyone's read,
four, so I
don't know.
I can hold no opinion. So.
But like I assumed I made a lot of assumptions about where this book would land on that, and I at least thought it would be a shortlisted title. But
yeah, because I thought too, holy moly, does Sjón pick up, like, his writing picks up some freaking steam at the end of this first. I mean, it's the end of the book, right? The first book, so it makes sense. But like, it is the end of the fireworks show. It is. The prose gets beautiful. It stretches out. It boom, 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 boom. It is some beautiful writing here at the end. Beautiful translation too.
And we'll see how that ends up playing out in like the next two sections too.
Yeah.
Because there is, I think that, as we said, he wrote it over a number of years. That's all evolving. But even within like the context of it being a trilogy, like things have to shift a little bit, and there's different aspects. But
yeah, that's what threw me off, because I started getting this feeling of a finale, and you're holding the book and you're only a quarter of the way into it, and you're like, what are you going to do for the next 400 pages if you're just blowing boom, boom, boom? This is the end of the first book. Got it. Okay.
Yep. Just wait. So 17. This goes back to our story of Gabriel, who's the other myth that's been in here in this section, in this volume, every so often, that Gabriel is supposed to come down, blow the trumpet of destruction. Doesn't do that. Instead, he sees this woman. He gets real horny. There's a unicorn. He's like, oh, I hate angels who fornicate with women. Then he's like, because I kind of want that. Like, it's my desire. Like, I need to come out of that. So he's like, way into this woman. And in this chapter, they find that the unicorn cap transforms into a demon, and is a actual demon.
Metal music video.
Yeah,
straight out. Blood starts coming off of it.
Have you seen the Eurovision entry this year for Iceland?
No.
Holy shit. Google this on your phone or whatever. Just put in Iceland Eurovision 2019, and you find a picture as I walk through this. You need to see this, and you're gonna be like, yeah. So it turns into the demon Amdusius. Good guess. And then the woman he's been seduced by turns out to be Lilith, who I know mostly through Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, but also as the myth that because Lilith's a big character, also referred to as Madam Satan. But Lilith was the first woman, but didn't obey Adam, I believe, or did something that she left Adam, and instead partnered with Satan when Satan was kicked out of heaven, and became like Satan's bride, and worked with Satan, and is like a destroyer of men, is like a bringer of chaos, is like, did you find the picture? Fuck and yes. Boom.
It's kind of like Mortal Kombat meets what was that, Legion of Doom from the WWE in the 80s? This is an amazing looking group here. Wow.
That's what this demon transforms into them, or the unicorn transforms into them.
Dominatrix fetish stuff going. I like that. All right.
Listen to the song. Listen to the song afterwards. It's pretty intense. So so Lilith turns out to be Lilith. Lilith's like, you're fucked. Like, you're an angel. You just fucked Lilith, or wanting to get Lilith. So then there's another transformation. And in this case, Gabriel transforms into both a female and a male angel, where it's Gabrielle. There's using she's, she had, and then and it still refers to itself as a he at times. It's both of those things together. And this we might want to get through a little bit more. So here I'll go through I'll read the actual section.
Well, just listen to this one line on 173. Like, I've never heard a line like this, and probably never will again. The angel was confused by the remnants of his brain and unsure of what sex she was or what had happened. But he did remember that by an ugly trick, the serpent Satan had performed his will through her. The old corrupter of souls had, by a neurological ruse, led the doomsday melody astray in the angel's chaste brain and sneaked it into the amygdaloid nucleus seat of olfactory and sexual sensation.
So yeah, okay. Let's break that down in a second, because then Gabriel knew that although it might sound like an innocent prank by Beelzebub to confuse her senses in this way, the consequences had been catastrophic. She had dreamed that she was female. So yeah, I'm a little confused by this. This is where it'd be nice to have someone else who did know more. But like, what I'm guessing is that so the Doomsday Melody is no longer something that Gabriel can perform. Instead, it's part of this female brain that's the seat of sexual sensation. So through sex is like the little death action of like orgasms being referred to as little deaths, things like that there seems to be the apocalypse is now within this other part of the brain rather than the apocalypse that he can blow, which is very male as well and very like, Cox language sort of thing. They can blow his horn and destroy the world. Now that melody, whatever that melody was, which maybe is in counter to the melody that was sung in the last thing, the da-da-dee, da-dum-dum things. Yeah. Maybe that's like the birthing melody of bringing this new son into existence. The melody of destruction is now within this angel who's either male, female brain, sexual spot of their brain, the amygdala. So then
it's reminiscent too, because I think it pairs well with if they're molding this child to be a new man, a new type of person for a new future. And then if Gabriel's one job is to like show up, blow the horn. And so after what Gabriel had done, rips off the trumpet and throws it into the sun. And like, now there's something new and possible because of metamorphosis or transformation, right?
Yeah, possibly. Okay, so yeah, let's get in. Let me read. This is one I want to read a lot of sections from. Let me read the next paragraph after that, because this one is part of it. Gabriel brushed the glowing lock of hair from his eyes. Beneath her twinkled the cities of the continent that was now to meet its doom. He raised the sacred trumpet to blow, but her lips wizened like burning parchment against the mouthpiece. Her fingers writhed on the polished metal like maggots, and instead of the angel's lungs filling with the Holy Spirit, she retched. Gabriel was disgusted at the thought of obeying the divine command to sound the blast for the battle between light and darkness. She had lost all inclination to play the instrument, this engine of doomsday that had accompanied her for as long as she could remember. Ever since she was a golden-haired boy child rehearsing in the Almighty's throne room, she no longer knew who she should side with in this dreadful conflict that would follow the blast. So the blast, too, if I remember Gabriel's thing right, the blast, the horn brings down the walls and brings about the chaos. And then there's the battle between light and darkness in the reckoning, or what do they call it? People get picked off and disappear. And some are left behind.
Oh, the rapture?
Rapture, that's it.
Okay.
Isn't that come after? Wow. I should have looked this up because I'm making up a lot of shit here. I don't remember Catholic school at all. But it's something that affects. So like if he blows the horn, it's not the end of the world. It's the beginning of that chaos. And now she can't do it. And doesn't know which side to be on. Like initially Gabriel would always be with the light, with God, but now that it's like corrupted by being both male, female, by not being able to blow the horn, by having done this thing with Lilith, that there's the good and evil balance is out of whack. So there's no reason to blow that horn because she doesn't know which side she would be on. Whereas, so then she throws the thing away, and it references she tore off the trumpet and flung it at the sun, which now rode high over Bikini Atoll, which is like that little, like, I assume most people pick up on this because it's not super like obscure knowledge, but that's where the first nuclear bomb was tested. Is Bikini Atoll. So like I feel like that's clearly a reference to that. And there the instrument melted. Yes, it went up in smoke along with her youth and everything she had stood for in the minds of devils, gods, and men. And she leaves Earth, and says the human race was possessed of such a strong urge to self-destruct that sooner or later they would invent something that would surpass her wind instrument.
You don't need my help.
Yeah, I don't need to bring this about because you guys are all fucked up and you're going to destroy yourself. You're not going to have clouds. You're not going to have water. And you're going to make nuclear weapons that will destroy yourself.
And it makes sense at the start of the atomic age, World War II, right?
Yep. And that's where, like, so if this is taken as Gabriel doing this at the beginning of World War II, which is the setting list period, that test is essentially this trumpet. The trumpet is now into the world. The chaos is now into the world. This feels like a very Twin Peaks: The Return moment in which the evil that exists in the world is there. You can't stop it. And that it has, since it has been created, this has opened up this whole self-destructive nature. So yes, I guess that's what I get out of this, but it was a confusing section to be like, I'm not sure what the point or what happens with the angel and what that one sentence that we read really meant. But but as an overall thing, I think it sort of makes sense.
Yeah. No, I think it again fits in with everything being about transformation and metamorphosis as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like a flower blooming.
There's so many lilacs that are blooming out as I rode into work along Highland, just blooms all over the place.
Beautiful.
It's always nice to see spring in bloom. So then we have the last chapter in which of this section, it's not even, is it numbered? Yeah, it's 18, right? Yep, 18. In which basically our protagonist, Lo, our invalid, gets snuck away onto a ship. And it becomes surreal. There's a lot of things that are weird about that, but the basics are that he gets taken out in like a hearse. So they're going to protect him, I guess, is the way I'm reading this, that they're going to help him get away. Now that people know that they are hiding a Jew in their hotel, they're going to help get him out. They get him out. He goes to the river, floats on a silvery feather that's as big as a Viking longship, and somehow is moves into the North Sea off the coast of Denmark. So he's no longer in Germany, he's elsewhere, and he gets on board a ship called the Godafoss, which must mean something. I didn't meant to look that up and I forgot to. And they basically ask him for payment to get on to have safe transport on the ship. And what he does is he gives them the ring that he's wearing on the little finger of his left hand, which was the same ring that they used for the to bring the baby to life.
The Godafoss is a waterfall in Iceland.
Yeah, that's right. That's why I've heard it before. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So that ties us into the Iceland thing. But I'm almost positive that it says when they bring out the ring that they put in there, that was the ring from his left finger. So the baby might not be alive right now. The golem might be in stasis.
Okay.
This is my, I'm just theorizing here for a second because I think there's something important about that. And I remember that little, the thing about the ring.
Well, it starts feeling very surreal in this section as well with how crazy it is on the ship, and like, I don't know, it gets really circusy, right?
Yep. Yeah, very much so. Yeah, so he held the ring. Where is it?
And they break the ring as soon as they get it, if I recall.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm trying to find where the ring is first mentioned. I'm not finding it, but it seems like it's similar. So the idea that this ring could be related to that seems. So the ship cleft to the world night and headed north. I was in the hat box. So now the golem is still in this hat box, and his dad is on the ship on their way to Iceland. But I love the beginning of this section. This is my favorite line. So jumping ahead, my favorite line of this part was the first two paragraphs of chapter 18. Time was murdered 3 years ago. Heaven and hell are closed. The trumpet will not be blown. Angels will not descend to earth. No devils will rise up from the abyss. The dead lie quiet in their graves. Nothing lives, nothing dies. So like that's the following up on the Gabriel section of like, now there's no need for this like holy apocalypse. Like we're going to destroy ourselves and we're not going to have redemption. Theoretically.
Yeah, and even the next line after that goes right back into the section before, an ambulance which has been painted black and converted into a hearse. So again, it's metamorphosis in another, even a very physical way of, this is supposed to be for life and now it's for death.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Yeah. And it is like saving him by having him hide in a hearse.
Yeah.
Like, so
that time was murdered 3 years ago. What a freaking killer line that is. That is
That's
so good.
amazing. And that is like when the atomic bomb is possible, when that's tested and they prove that that can happen, that is when time is done. Like everything accelerates from then. Everything's no longer natural. We have ripped a hole in everything. And that's why I think that this is like that Gabriel section is basically, because if they remember that myth right, like Gabriel has to blow the horn so that there can be the rapture, so that there can be entrance into heaven. Things, Armageddon isn't just Armageddon, it's also, a positive, and that people can then end up in heaven. But without that, we're just stuck.
Yeah, this was a weird book for me, this first one. I mean, I was riding along with it, like, okay, it's just cool enough, whatever. Like I didn't dislike it, but I didn't love it. And then the last 30, 40 pages just knocked it out of the park. Loved it by the end of it. So it's one of those weird ones. Like, it's like one of those movies where like, no, just wait for the end. Like, really, I got to go through all this to get to, like, I really want to quit. I don't want to do this. And then, it just builds to something that's so good. It makes it all worthwhile. Like, that's how I took this first section.
Yeah. I agree.
Like, I liked it enough, but boy, I really love the end. Really
and it does feel like a early book of his, like, in a way, like having read a lot of other things where he's like become much more condensed and more elliptical in his writing, and a little bit more involved in like meshing different images together and doing things that are not so explanatory. This does feel early, but it does still have the trick of like who's narrating this book and why are they narrating it and who are they talking to, which is still not unveiled here. Like, that's all still in stasis. But this kind of myth building is very similar to future Sjón books, in which he does a lot where like things take on a very universal mythic dimension, but through like these little resonances of pieces that you already have, like even like the metamorphosis being referred to like very directly in that one section. So from Kafka through like Lilith, through like anything, and like sort of making a new myth out of that. I love that. I love the way.
Did you ever watch the movie Clash of the Titans?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, they have this part where it's Zeus and all the gods on Mount Olympus, and they have these little carved out areas. It's all, it's all white and cloudy, like typical, right? Like, totally typical. These are gods. And the figurines are all made out of clay on all the rows, and they can, like, a god can pick one of the clay figurines and move them around a little bit, and that's what happens on Earth. There are parts of this where it reminded me, it just felt like these people are out of time, looking at things, because the way the paintings are working, or things will be missing from paintings, so there's something weird in the storytelling where I felt like the narrator and the person they're talking to are like, there is no time, and they're outside of it, like watching the stream of time. And oh, look at this part here. This was me when I was before I was born. This is going to be my father. So there's something very strange in the storytelling that was very reminiscent and kind of angelic or godlike in the viewpoint.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And that's one of the things that's really compelling, I think, about how this works. Because if you took that out, it's just a basic, like, it's set in 1940, but feels like a Victorian novel sort of thing, like of that kind of like, big house, love story sort of thing. But it has this other backdrop to it.
We must hide him away in the priest's hole, and
and like they'll come together, and like a baby will be born, and all that. But like the second layer of that narration transforms it. So there are, like, again, like with the two images, or the two things, the two narrative bits, plus the Gabriel thing, I suppose, make it like a new overall entity as a book. Like, the structure of it is different than a normal rising and falling. It's very like, it's this kind of compacted 3-level, 3-viewpoint book. Yeah,
and I think it helped too when Kari was saying last episode about Sjón's wanting to kind of play with form and break the mold and be somewhat avant-garde, and I feel you can definitely feel that with the narrative storytelling structure in here.
Absolutely. So that painting thing is strange. I can only find 2 of them right now. Once is at the beginning of 16, she opens a false window, and the veil of smoke is sucked out into the cool Parisian night of the painting. And then the last one's on 181. In the attic room sits Marie Sophie, the dear child, on the edge of her bed, her face buried in an open book. The candle stub in the holder on the chest cast a glow on the contents of the room, the chair, chamber pot, and wardrobe. The saint has vanished from the gaudy picture over the bed. The hut that rested in his hands lies shattered in the forest clearing, his inhabitants scattered like matchwood among the ruins. So yeah, so like there's some weird shit happening with that painting, but like that's cool.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. I didn't track the painting at all.
Yeah.
Like I wonder the times that it shows up. I don't remember the painting or what it's supposed to look like. But
It's in there a few times.
I bet you if you went through that would be
that's another thread you can pull on for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so anyways, he gets out. He's off to Iceland, Gottafoss. It's clearly a German ship because on top of the mast he sees a flag bearing the accursed symbol flapping on its pole. They speak German. They say cold or cult. And that's that. There's a weird party going on in this ship.
Yeah.
I don't think we should talk about. That's cool. And then he gives them the ring. They break it in two. On to next book.
Yeah, and like, does the ring represent a promise, right?
It's
also supposed to represent eternity, and so yeah, I don't know, whatever.
We'll find out. We'll find out. Next section, part 2, is Iceland's 1,000 Years, which is reference to the national anthem, according to Kauri, and it's subtitled "The Crime Story." But the first chapter, and why I included this first chapter in this podcast instead of waiting for the next one, was not only because it makes the divisions a little bit easier, but that this one really doesn't have as much to do with the second section as it does kind of tying back to the first. So it
ties in wonderfully.
It's titled "In the Beginning," and this first chapter is about violence and crime, and is the myth making of the town. What is it, Kukenstadt, that they came from. So it's how did Kukenstadt get its name, mixed through this like mythic story of crime and violence, in which there's a berserker, which I love berserker, like as a word, like it's not referred to as anything but that is this berserker who like is giant and eats and fucking destroys everything from Asia on west. He's just destroying everything, and he eats eggs in a very strange way in which he sucks them out of the ass of the chicken.
Yeah, I underline that line. It's a really that's another I'll probably never have this line ever again in a piece of literature. This is interesting.
His method of eating eggs was as unnatural as the thoughts that accompanied it. As soon as the poor feathered creatures began their broody clucking, he would seize them one after another and suck the eggs out of their rumps.
Yeah, this is the one that got me. This miracle had come about because the berserker's method of egg collecting had stretched out the creature's backside so wide that the chick had hatched inside its mother. I'll never read that line again. I know for sure. Nothing even close to that. Wow.
So
okay.
This chicken that's born inside the mom sneaks the way into the berserker's teeth and hides in his wisdom tooth, and then starts speaking and says, "Can I see? Can I see?" is the only thing it ever says. So it changes the berserker's mentality. Because they're no longer
goes, I've got an inner voice.
I've got an inner voice. It's curious. Now I have to hold things up to his mouth so his inner voice can see them before he eats them. And up until that point, the only thing he ever thought was that which doesn't destroy me makes me stronger. And now he thinks, can I see? Can I see? Because it's being spoken by this chick inside his mouth. Anyways, so as he's flipping out, and when he's in Germany, he's picks up an onion, and the chick keeps saying can I see? Can I see? And he keeps unpeeling and unpeeling and unpeeling and unpeeling and unpeeling, and there's all the layers, and gets to nothing in the center, and fucking flips out. And as he jumps and
the berserker went berserk.
The berserker went berserk.
That's a great line.
As he jumps and throws himself towards the North Pole, the chick falls out, escapes, and lands in this town, and the town knows that they were saved because of this chick, and so they name it Kukenstadt as after this chick. So that's why they named. But then we get the ultimate devastation here. So we get the origin of that. So the chick had been referenced several times in the first volume, but never explained. It was just and they say something about the naming of the town is wrong because there isn't any chicken, or whatever. There's something about it that was nonsensical, and there's the little statue of the chicken. And now we get that origin of this town. We get an origin that's also of Troll's Cape, because that is the berserker jumping up to the Arctic or whatever. But this last paragraph is it's both the myth making of origin and destruction. The villagers knew that if the chick hadn't driven the berserker mad, their days would have been numbered. And they were not content merely to name the place Kukenstadt after their savior. No, they even raised a memorial to it on the patch of dirt that later became the town square. And there the statue of the chick stood, as one can see from old photographs, until the town was razed to the ground toward the end of the Second World War. So you know that Kukenstadt is off the map. And and would have probably, I mean, that's probably accurate. I don't know if this was a real town. I kind of doubt it. But whatever, there's lots of things that it could stand in for. But yeah, so that's the little myth of this first section. So,
and it's crazy because I remember discussing this with your class when I was in with your class, and I was really curious about the very first page of this book, going like, it's really like the imagery is really weird, where it adds, you know, the first line of the book: if we were to enter by night the main square of the small town, let's call it Kukenstadt, right?
yeah.
So we get that. But then the boy may have continued his marauding westwards. So marauding.
Yep.
And then they talk about burning. And then a little bit further down, hearts of the sleepers, the memory lives on how the chick saved their forebears from being slain by a ferocious berserker. And I underlined that one, like, what the hell?
And then boom, we get it.
And then bang, like it's right there.
It's the first part. So in some ways, this is like a good parallel. So you have him as the narrator, our narrator, creating this sense of this town and building this out for his interlocutor through like this thing and the berserker and the marauding and all those terms. And then the first chapter of part 2, you get that story.
Yeah.
And it's so it is running in parallel. But in this case, it's not being told by this narrator. Instead, or maybe it is. I guess it is being told by the narrator too. Although it doesn't have the same, it doesn't feel the same, because that one has like a very clearly like, hey, you know, and because it says my life story towards it. And were it not for the fact that my life story begins in this very town, which shows its existence to an inquisitive chick, if it did not begin there. So like all of this part is alluded to there, but we don't get that story at that point.
Yeah, so part 1's 1994, and then he publishes part 2 in 2001. Is that correct?
7 years.
It's its own. This was its own novel as well.
Yep.
So yeah, I'd love to ask the author if we have him on.
He's coming on.
Okay. Did he have this in mind all along? Because there's no way he could have put in the name Kukenstadt, or you know.
Yeah.
Was this a bigger thing? I don't have time to get to it yet. I'll do it later, and addresses it in book 2. Yeah,
I'm very curious about the construction of these 3 parts. Because this there's a lot to come. There's a lot of new things to discover. Okay. And I don't think I would have picked up on this reading it the first time. I don't think I did. Going back to that first page, it's really through this that some of these connections start to really evolve. So I like doing this podcast because it actually makes me feel like I can read better.
Well, yeah, that's some genius level stuff, to like how well that's put in the very first page of the book, and then it pays off on 200 or whatever, 100.
Yeah.
What
absolutely.
Page are we even at?
Like 197.
Yeah, so like 200 pages later. And 200 pages and 8 years later or whatever it was. So, yeah. Well played, sir.
Do you have a favorite line that you want to share from this one?
Yeah, it's not even really a favorite line. It's just the language, how it changes. I love "Time was murdered 3 years ago." It's so bizarre and strange, and I love that one and how punchy and tight it is. But again, when I was talking about ending that first book with fireworks, just this this description of the trap that has been set for Gabriel. It's on page 172, the first full paragraph, second full paragraph. His lust evaporated. He launched himself into the air in a trice and paused at a safe distance from the grove. The calf was metamorphosizing into a demon. Around its horn appeared a pewter crown, upside down, the points piercing the flesh of its brow, and to the clown's immeasurable joy, black blood began to trickle down its face. It shook its head, rolled its yellow eyes, and licked its face with a forked tongue 3 feet long. Like it just starts, this beautiful language just starts, and it's so like the vivid imagery. It's so concrete, and you could just really feel it picking up so much steam at the end. It's amazing.
This is so good, so good. That reminds me, this is real digressive, but bear with me. There's a movie called Hello, Mary Lou, Prom Night 2 that you definitely need to watch because it's incredible. Like it's incredible. But there's a scene. So it was on How Did This Get Made a few episodes ago, which is in just the beginning of how exuberant they were about it. Convinced me to watch it this weekend, and Anthony and I watched it in full, and it is batshit. I don't even want to give any part of it away. Just watch it, except that there's a giant life-size rocking horse in this teenage girl's room that becomes possessed at one point in time and is a demon with like this giant tongue that comes out that
Okay.
She does stuff with. But that image that you just read, if you watch this movie, you're gonna be like, oh shit, like that's
The unicorn turned into a tongue fork demon, upside down crown, blood face person.
Also, you will love this movie. It's a movie that explains nothing. Like it just doesn't. It makes you make every connection, and like there's several times where like, oh, wait a second, because nobody ever stops to be like, yeah, no, here's the story.
Sounds like every book you made me read on this.
Except this is
the hell is going on?
It's supposed to be a horror movie. It's definitely not. It's just weirder than that. Anyway, so next week we'll be going over chapters 2 through 7 of volume 2, which is pages 201 or something like that through 256. So through 256.
Okay.
So next, like essentially 50 pages of the book. We don't have that many episodes left because this book, like, even though it took us a while to get through part 1, I think part 2 is relatively short, and then part 3 is maybe a little bit longer. But we're done by July 4th, so we're moving through.
All righty. Well, good luck on your trip, man. Have fun.
Thank you. As always, you guys can find us at open_letter, Chad W. Post, Brian Wood _. Order your book. I have the pre-order link in the show notes every week, so people just click on it.
Thank you. That's so kind of you.
Get it now. Get it before it's coming out, and it'll help Bow Editions. It'll help them with a lot of things. So just pre-order it through them or through your local bookshop. I don't think there's anything else to add this week. I'm going to be gone. Next week will be also a weird recording, but we'll figure it out when it comes.
And if you want to get a petition going for CoDex 1962 to be on the short list, we'll get that going.
Dude, that would be hilarious. Someone should start that. I would love to see, like,
I want to write in vote.
Crazy, like change.org like petition about best translated book awards shortlist.
This is important for your attention and your time. We really need this change to happen.
That's how we get on Fox News.
Screw you, Alabama, and what's going on. This is important.
I'm more disturbed by this Alabama, Missouri shit than I probably should be, but it's like
you should be disturbed.
Very upset and
definitely
nervous.
be disturbed. All right. Till next week. Stay disturbed, everybody.
Yep.